Hi, my name's Philip Brunton and I welcome you to Jazz Plate lesson number 2. Now let's assume you can play everything from lesson 1. I remind you this is a progressive course, so all the earlier lessons are a stepping stone, an important stepping stone towards your success. Now looking at your worksheet for lesson 2 that's downloaded from mymusicpb.com/jazzplate, you'll see at the top of the page we have the perfect fifth interval. Okay, the perfect fifth is the first and the fifth note of the major scale. So we have the perfect fifth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the sound. You think of that. And now if you add the third major third from last week, we get a major chord. And that's what we worked on last week, and we'll continue one more week on these major chords. Now, just before we begin, we'll have a tuning note, A440. Let me give one more. Okay, we're going to start with a review from last week. You'll see the next thing on the worksheet is a review lesson 1, exercise 3. It just reviews our first 3 notes we had, but it's an important review because you'll notice that the first 3 notes on the first bar, add it to the next 3 notes, and you get 6 notes of a major scale. Eventually, major scales are going to be really important for all the chord scales we're going to be learning. And so having a good grasp of that scale is very helpful. So by reviewing this exercise, we're also learning our 6 notes now of a major scale. All 12 scales you'll learn. Okay, so let's have a go. This is review lesson 1, exercise 3, which is the top of the page of lesson 2. That's a bit confusing. Hopefully not. So I assume that was brilliant for you because you fluently can play everything from lesson number 1. So we're going to move on now, and we have our first, third, and fifth note for making up our major chord. So this is now lesson number 2, exercise 1. I remind you in this exercise, I play the first bar while you're listening, and then you repeat that same bar after me. Okay, here we go. You play major chords. Exercise number 2, same as number 1, but without the gap between each chord. Okay, here we go. 2, 3. Okay, exercise number 3, same chords, but now the cycle of fifths. Remember, that's one chord dropping to the next, either a perfect fifth or up a perfect fourth. Exercise number 3 together. Two, three. Okay, so far we've been playing the chord, the major chord, which consists of the first, third, and the fifth note. In lesson 1, we also had the 1, 2, 3. So it's that second note I'm going to deal with for a moment here. The chord tone 1, 3, 5. If you want to have notes outside of the chord, we'll call them non-harmonic tones. And first type we'll talk about is the passing note. So where the first note passes through the second into the third, or you can third pass through the second into the first note. So you can see at the top of the page passing notes, some examples, and then some auxiliary notes where the first note will go to the second and back to the first. So it's an upper auxiliary, or maybe the third down to the second, back to the third, and that's a lower auxiliary. Okay, and one other thing I wanted to talk about before the next exercise. Last week we talked about swing articulation, what makes something swing a lot better. It's worth noting also, in jazz quite often articulations aren't shown. We inflect our own style of articulations into our piece, so it might not have any slurs, so the classical players will be used to seeing. But I've shown some last week and I continue this week just to get used to the offbeat. But I also have something called a rhythmic anticipation. It really helps things swing a lot better. So if you look at the third bar at the top of page 2, it's the rhythmic anticipation. You have the 1, 2, 3, which is a passing, and then it jumps up to the fifth, but it jumps to the fifth instead of waiting to beat 3, it anticipates a bit early. We have this tie, and you hear this quite often in jazz. So classical would be, but in there, you can see how that gives a nice effect. Okay, so we're going to play that exercise I just played there, that little motif, that pattern, starting on exercise number 4. I play it, so it's 1, 2, 3, 5, and then you repeat it. Okay, and we'll go through each key. So this is exercise number 4. You play. You play. Back to P. Okay, exercise number 5, same as before, but without the gap. Just a reminder what we talked about last week. If you want to figure out where to breathe, aim for 4-bar phrases. That really helps you set it up for later in your improvising solos. Exercise number 5, 3, 4. Okay, exercise number 6, cycle of fifths. Just to remind you the articulations, you see I showed it on the first 2 bars, and then you see simile, which is basically telling us to continue the same articulations. Exercise number 6, 1, 2, 3. Now, just before we get to our improvisation section of the lesson, at the bottom of page 2, there's some optional patterns that you can do. So far, everything we've been doing upwards, ascending. So often when I hear my students, they see a chord and they start improvising, which means they start the scale at the bottom, work their way up. So for exercise 1, instead of going, you could go when you play it. So, and then for exercise 4, can now be. So it's great to be able to see a chord and immediately figure out what the 5th note is. Okay, now it's time to do some improvisation. So just like last lesson, it's going to be call and response. The first time through, I'll play 2 bars, you respond with 2 bars, just using the first 2 notes shown. Second time we go through, we use 3 notes shown, and finally we use all 4 notes. Okay, so use some of my ideas. You might pick up on some of my rhythms, and then you come up with your own ideas. So if I'm using 4 notes, it might sound. You might come back. And remember, you can use some passing tones that we talked about, and some upper and lower auxiliary notes. And of course, we have the rhythmic anticipation. Okay, I start with just 2 notes. You respond. Next line. Line 3. Seven. Nine. Last one. Back to the top, 3 notes. Line 4. Seven. Line 10. 7. Line 10. Last line. And there we are. Fantastic. So that completes our lesson number 2. If there's anything you're not fluent with, you go back. Remember we said practicing is repeating correctly, so which means you might have to slow it down, and it's the pattern of notes, so you might have to include a bar before something of the difficult bar. Repeat it very slowly, and then medium speed, and then back up to tempo. So remember, no matter how easy or difficult these exercises are for you, they're important stepping stones in this progressive course. So take the time to make sure you're really fluent with each lesson. Okay, I look forward to seeing you in lesson number 3. Remember, join me at mymusicpb.com/jazzplates. Bye for now.